I said, hey, yo, what is going on, guys? It's your boy Mojados, and we back for another video. Hope you guys are doing well, having a great weekend. But today, we're going to be talking everything GRT, okay? We're going to talk about what is GRT, background of GRT, some funding, collaboration, tokenomics, staking and governance, what to expect next, and some TA on the graph, right? And the graph has always been on my radar. I didn't always know what it was, but now I've written up a report, very short reports, guys. These reports are just meant to help you understand what it is, how it's going to impact the current, system, right? And we're going to talk everything GRT, right? So if you don't know what GRT is, you are at the right place. And if you want to learn more about GRT, you are at the right place. And I'm going to tell you why I've added GRT to my bags, okay? So if you guys don't already know, the graph has launched a $205 million ecosystem fund, which is great because it incentivizes users to join and build on the ecosystem. So that is a great sign here, right? And, basically GRT is a, like a data platform, right? And we're going to talk more about how it brings data to platforms, but we're going to go in this order that I've pretty much constructed all my articles in. And guys, if you guys don't already know, if you go on my website here, guys, mohodls.com/research, link is in the bio as well to this article. But I pretty much just write reports on many different articles, different topics, different assets as well. I like to look and learn from many different projects, right? It's not just about one thing. I am not a maxi of any one coin, right? We're here to make money at the end of the day, and we're here to learn, right? We're here to learn as well. So the fascinating part is learning, but then also making money in the meantime. It just makes it even sweeter, right, guys? So, we're going to talk about GRT and why I believe it is a great asset. So yeah, moving on. So we'll start off here with the general information. What is the graph? The graph is an indexing protocol for organizing and displaying data for blockchains. In some ways, the graph is similar to Google on how it displays data. The way Google displays verifiable information from the internet on their site is what Graph does for blockchain. By using the Graph protocol, it allows developers and builders to create their own unique set of data to their liking. The Graph makes it easily accessible for applications to plug in the Graph's API, making it cheap, reliable, and fast for data access across the crypto economy, right? And so basically, here are a few projects like Uniswap, Synthetics, Decentraland, and Argon using the Graphs technology, which allows them, of course, to see all this information. And basically, guys, right here, you can see like Uniswap plugs in the API, and of course, all this information you're seeing is because of the graph, right? Again, seeing the total liquidity, seeing the average volume, seeing the total transactions, seeing certain pairs. All of this is possible with the graph, right? And just like I wrote up here, the graph is similar to how Google displays its data, right? And again, I'm gonna read this again so it makes perfect sense for you now that you can see this image. The way Google displays verifiable information from the internet on their site is what the graph does for blockchains. So in some ways, the data exists. And what the graph does is they basically built a technology that takes the information and puts it into a manner where you can use it to display information, right? So again, it's just basically taking the information and then aggregating it onto one dashboard, which is great because why wouldn't you want to use something that can only help you or your business for analytics purposes, right? So seeing where the volume is coming from, right? Seeing how much transactions are on the network, right? Who wouldn't want to see this on their blockchain, right? And so that's why you're seeing here, Synthetics, Uniswap, Decentraland, they're using the graph because it's a no-brainer, right? And then we're going to move on to the graph's background. The Graph Protocol Inc., which is the legal entity name of the actual company, right? Remember, GRT is basically a coin, has nothing to really do with the graph. I believe that they're two separate things. But I think there's like a foundation as well, which we're not going to get too much into the legal side of it because the whole point of this video is going to be to educate you on what the graph does and what the GRT token is as well. So I am going to mention though, like the actual legal entity and give you guys a little bit of background on it because I do think it's important. So with that disclaimer, we're going to move on. The Graph Protocol Inc. is a project based out of San Francisco, California, and founded by Brandon Ramirez, Yanis Pullman, and Yaniv Tal in 2018. Maybe butchered those names there. The founders created the graph because they saw data was hard to access in the blockchain space, so they created an API that is called a subgraph that links on-chain data to any application that is being built by developers. It is also important to note that the graph supports its Ethereum network with plans to add more chains. All founders have backgrounds in technology and experience in software engineering. So this, of course, is very good that they all have software engineering experience. They have strong tech backgrounds, and they were able to see that on-chain data and basically oh, got a notification there. Whoops. So they basically saw that there was a gap that needed to be bridged with bringing on-chain data to applications. And this is exactly what they did with the graph, right? This basically is called a subgraph, which Uniswap uses as an API to give them this information that they're seeing. Moving on to the graph funding and collaboration, the graph held and raised money 2 times in 2020. One was a private sale and the other was an ICO. And this is I basically found through Masari.io. The graph was able to raise about $20 million from both offerings. The graph has prominent investors like Parify, Coinbase Ventures, DCG, CoinFund, Multicoin Capital, and more. You can clearly see here they have pretty much a lot of firepower. Today, the graph's subgraph API has been utilized across many well-known networks like Uniswap, Decentraland, Audius, Polygon, CryptoPunks, and many more. There's a total of 441 applications utilizing the subgraph on the Ethereum blockchain. Lastly, the Graph Foundation awarded Masari a $12.5 million developer grant to build and standardize subgraphs. So basically, you can clearly see here that the graph is being used. You can clearly see that a lot of VCs funded this project because they knew that this is pretty much breakthrough technology. And you also see that not only was it those few companies or protocols that I mentioned using the subgraphs, but you even see NFT projects utilizing the graph to give them the information they need, right? And so, again, I'm not going to click here, but if you go ahead, if you come to the link on the bio, you will see 441 applications using the subgraph API to give them the data they need to make sure they're making the right decisions from an analytical standpoint or just being transparent for anyone to see, right? Because, again, this API is pretty much the bread and butter for this protocol, in my opinion. That's what sticks out to me. And I'm pretty sure if you guys are looking at this right now too, you can see how important it is to see data, right? Everything is data today, right? So yeah. And also, they're trying to educate and develop more subgraphs, which is why they awarded Masari $12.5 million. So this is also another way that this is another way that the graph is trying to build out their ecosystem by awarding money to other companies to build out this ledger, which is a great thing to do, of course, because again, anything that funds the actual project is going to only help it get more adoption, right? Moving on to the tokenomics end, GRT is a native token for the Graphs network. Currently the circulating supply is 7.4. I think it's a million, but this looks like billion. And real quick, I'm gonna just click here just to fact check this. All right, yeah, it's billion. Okay, so 7.4 billion tokens with a capped supply of 10 billion tokens according to CoinGecko. GRT is a token that is utilized to pay protocol participants to index their work. Per figure D, users can earn income on the network they perform in GRT stake. At launch, 12.5% of supply was released, and the rest of the tokens will be issued over the period time, over time per the image below. The issuance chart may be used to help investors decide when to buy or sell as they are released to early investors, and of course new issuance and so on and so forth. So basically, most from what I can see, GRT is used mostly for indexing, and of course, I'm sure there's some transaction fees that you can use it for, but that's the main use case that I see it for. And this is also a chart for the distribution, so you can definitely look at this, right, and see when is a wise time to buy or when is a wise time to sell. But basically, we can see that the most of the supply is pretty much out already, right? 75% of supply is out already, and of course, as it's being staked, I'm sure that the rewards keep dropping to keep the stake going. But it is interesting to see here that how it's basically being distributed. But for the most part, guys, you can see that in the beginning, this was probably the most inflationary time period for GRT. And that's why I believe now that we're pretty much really far into the actual, network as far as issuance, there's not going to be that much inflation, right? Because if you look at the supply right here, guys, we're at 7.5 billion, right? And you can see we're somewhere like over here, okay? And so we're not fully there yet, but from here on out, it's pretty much going to be a slow rise. And it looks like it's going to be from new issuance. But that is, of course, important to note because, as you invest in tokens, the most underlooked factor is tokenomics, and people buy things. But sometimes the protocol just keeps on dumping tokens, and that's not really a good time to be holding a token when the protocol is, dumping a bunch of tokens. It's not really a good idea. And so that's why you want to pay real close attention to these vesting schedules because they give you pretty much exactly what they're doing. And this is really important. When a project gives you the tokenomics, I really, really like that because they got nothing to hide. They want to show you that they're being transparent. And this gives me confidence as an investor to say, hey, okay, this protocol is sharing exactly what is being released, when it's being released, how it's being released. And yeah, so this is, of course, as transparent as it gets, right? And then moving on to staking and governance, GRT token holders may contribute to the network by staking, which is another use case of the GRT token. Staking rewards may vary, but on average are 3% from the official website. GRT also has a burn mechanism that deducts 1% of stake when depositing it into the network. Centralized exchanges sometimes offer GRT staking, but also vary as pools quickly fill up. The Graph Council is a team of people who want to introduce governance. This idea was proposed in 2020, but has not been implemented yet. So for governance, guys, they want to impose some type of DAO where, it's called the Graph Council. And what they want to do is, of course, make it so that GRT token holders or network participants can, of course, take more ownership in the network and participate by bringing in different ideas and so on and so forth from a governance aspect. But it's not really implemented yet, so we're gonna have to watch closely still when that does launch. But that is good things for the network. I believe that's only gonna be good things, so we're gonna have to watch closely on that. And this is pretty much how the Graph network indexes stuff. So you can clearly see here there's 4 different ways, which I'm not gonna get into. But yeah, moving on. What's next for GRT? The Graph is an intelligent protocol that makes it easy for chains to access data using subgraphs. But what's next? We already know Ethereum is a main chain that drove adoption for the Graph. Most recently, they hinted at adding a new chain for developers to build out the network. This is extremely fascinating because GRT grew to $5.7 billion in market cap with only one chain, guys. So that's another thing that you have to remember. GRT grew, right? And this is like the most fascinating part to me, right? So we look here, this says 6 billion, right? So yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm not gonna be able to catch if I do this. Yeah, perfect. So you can see here that it pretty much grew to $6 billion in market cap, which is absolutely fascinating to see with one chain, right? So what do I mean by one chain? Just in case you don't understand, all the applications that are using the subgraph are all ERC20 tokens, which you can see right here. Uniswap, Decentraland, Audius, Polygon, CryptoPunks, they're all built on Ethereum, right? And so all those companies are using the subgraph API to pull up data. And can you imagine what's going to happen when more chains are added? So this is why it's so fascinating to see when GRT adds another chain, the more adoption is going to come from it, right? So again, this is why I really like the Graph. They're continuously expanding when it comes to adding chains. And, we're going to see again, I'm going to expose right now what chain they added. I actually did accidentally show it if you guys were paying attention throughout this video, but I'm going to show you anyways right now, so do not worry. But with the addition of more chains, the more utility, we may expect an even higher valuation. Another announcement that was made was nested queries, which allows more filtering when using subgraphs, giving more customization for developers. Despite market downturn, the team behind the Graph is working around the clock. So even though we're in a bear market, even though the Graph has fell from its all-time highs and has put in a recent all-time low, the company or the protocol doesn't care. they're doing everything they can to keep on bringing adoption. They've added new chains, they've added nested queries, and they're looking to keep on expanding and keep on growing, basically adding more customization, because they know that, hey, listen, if we keep on building the way we have so far, people are going to want to use the graph. And I personally think, again, using the graph is a no-brainer, especially if you have a protocol that pretty much needs to see certain things, right? You want to see the data that you are touching with. And this is kind of the post here, which again just talks about having more filters and subfields, enabling data retrieval like never before, which is a great thing to see. And this was a announcement from the graph. The next chain integration on the graph network is to be announced. And right here, guys, this is it. So Gnosis is the chain that was recently added. And so this, of course, I'm not really super familiar with this blockchain, but I'm sure that if they added it, then there must be a strong reason why. And it's okay. I mean, like, even if people don't like it, listen, they're not stopping here. You got to remember, right? There's another question mark here. And they're going to keep on adding. So, of course, they've added Ethereum. Now they've added Gnosis. But they're going to keep on adding. So we're going to see what they add next. But this is the project. It's called Gnosis. Has about a 400 million market cap. And I don't know what exactly the protocol does here. But maybe I might write about it. Please drop a comment if you want me to talk about this or not. But this is going to be interesting to see what happens, like, or what comes from it, right? I don't know who's building on here, but clearly the graph knows something we don't. So yeah, we'll see. And then moving on to the TA aspect, GRT has had an amazing run from 10 cents all the way to basically almost $3. Since the all-time highs, we've been mainly downtrending. And then it says it is best to wait and let the dust settle before, as the bottom takes a long time to form. Currently, there is no support and the price recently hit an all-time low. So it's best to be sidelined until more data is presented. However, if the price recovers back to 10 cents, it may become a zone of interest as it ranges. And basically, guys, looking here, this reminds me of Casper. If you guys are following me on Twitter, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Basically, this is the all-time low. When we get above the all-time low and we range in the area, right, with strength, we can have a run. And you can clearly see here that we had that run here, 27% off the lows, which is similar setup to what we're seeing here on GRT, where the low hits here, right, we get above it and we have a nice little run. But ironically enough, this has more momentum because, the moves are stronger to the upside. There's more strength here, which again just makes it more convincing that, hey, listen, GRT is looking pretty bullish. Short term, right? Of course, over the long term, I do believe that it's going to gain momentum over time. But at the same time, we don't want to get overly bullish. We want to be pretty cautious. Personally, I think at this price is worth adding, right? I'm dollar cost averaging at this point. But, being that it's down pretty much, how much percentage? Let's look at this. It's already, it fell 97%, okay? And you got to remember, this 97% that it fell, like, remember, like, looking at this issuance chart, like in the early days, pretty much a lot of tokens are being vested. We already see that 75% of tokens are now into distribution, which makes it more lucrative for the longer term, I would assume, right? Obviously, because they're not dumping as many tokens, right? So taking into that aspect, taking into the aspect that they're growing, adding more chains, bringing in more utility, there's probably a lot of runway for GRT in the future, right? Because whether we range here or not, or whether we make another leg down, we're going to have to watch closely because, of course, if we do fall lower, then, hey, listen, I'm going to have to relook at this because what I'm doing here is saying, okay, my specialty is technical analysis, but taking the project, learning it fundamentally, then combining it with TA is going to make things pretty much sweeter, right? And so whether the project is bullish or not, or whether the coin itself is bullish or not, sometimes the price chart might not be there, right? And so it's best to wait for confirmation. But like I said, I'm gonna add here. I think it's a no-brainer to add here because again, it's 97% down from all-time highs, and adding here is not gonna hurt. And then for the final part, I just want to talk about the conclusion. I believe the graph protocol is set up to do wonders in the future. With an idea like subgraphs, it is quite difficult to imagine most blockchains not adopting free data will only benefit them. This technology has gone far with only one chain support. Can you imagine what will happen when more chains are added? The demand for GRT will continue to rise and more people will rely on the Graph's protocol. Also, earlier this year, the Graph has launched $200 million ecosystem fund that will continue expanding the network. I think it's clear that the Graph is unique and not going anywhere anytime soon. The only complaint one may have is the vesting schedule, as I mentioned earlier. Some may look at the vesting schedule as a problem, and others may look at it as an opportunity in the long term. Not financial advice. Lastly, I am bullish on the Graph, but it doesn't mean that it's correlated to the value of GRT. But again, as I mentioned, I'm going to add here. I think that, listen, if it goes lower, I can keep on adding. But this is a very bullish protocol. I think that, again, with the idea like subgraphs, there are a few other competitors out there. You know, it's just a no-brainer to me, guys. And I think that we're going to watch very closely to see how the network ages, how it matures, and so on and so forth. But adding here is pretty much a no-brainer, and I'm going to be very excited to watch this video maybe in 2-3 years to see where the Graph has gone, right? But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you again. If you made it this far, please like and sub if you have not already. And as always, haro haro haro. Peace.